Thank you, sir, for the opportunity. This is a case series of fourth nerve palsies. Just a quick brief for the salient points in superior oblique palsy workup. You have to see for the head tilt. Generally, in the superior oblique palsy, there is an opposite head tilt. You have to do a Parkes three-step test. See for the hypertropia, in which eye there is hypertropia, and in which case it is increasing, and in which tilt. Again, you have to ask for the family photograph of the child. If it dates back, if the head tilt is dates back to infancy, that means you are dealing with a congenital superior oblique palsy. And again, in this congenital superior oblique palsy, there will be increased vertical fusion range and there will be no subjective torsion. And the patient will also have a mid-facial hypoplegia on the dependent side of the head tilt. Do a exaggerated FDT test for superior oblique because that will decide the management. And then in a fresh case of superior oblique palsy, acquired ones, you have to do a Lee and diplopia charting because that will help you in following up the patient. Always do a double Maddox rod test also, because if it is less than 10, then it is more than 10, then you are dealing with a bilateral superior oblique palsy, and no superior oblique palsy workup is complete without checking for the fundus extorsion. Now just a small clip of the how you do superior oblique traction test. You hold the globe at the superiotemporal and inferonasal limbus, and you put the globe in a adducted, in up gaze, adducted and in torsion, and you simultaneously you press the globe downwards, and just across the tendon you do a back and forth movement, and in a normal tendon you feel a knife edge effect, whereas in case of a lax tendon you will be able to depress it more. Just see this. Yes. Show the video again. Yeah, this is a lax tendon. You can see we have holded, we have adducted, we have depressed the globe simultaneously, and we have contorted, and you can see the limbus is not. You are not able to see the limbus. So this is a lax tendon.
You have to push it down. In case of oblique muscles, you need to push the globe backwards in order to see the full traction on the superior oblique. So, and you will find that you are able to do it very easily because it's not having the normal tone also. Otherwise, it's a lax superior oblique. So you can easily push it behind, and then when you move it, it allows you to move, and there is no knife edge movement. If it is a normal superior oblique, you will feel a little bit of as if it's on a tight rope, a ball is rocking. And if it is tight, then you won't even be able to push it backwards, and it will just rock even at the outset.
Just the surgical strategy, always check for the superior oblique tendon laxity, check for IO overaction, check for the vertical deviation in the primary position, PBCT in cardinal gazes, and do a contralateral IR or ipsilateral SR FDT. So this is the first patient. You can see there is right eye hypertropia, which is increasing in the left gaze and increasing on the right head tilt. In the primary position, you can see there is R by L of 10 prism diopters. On the fundus, there is right eye extorsion. On the double Maddox rod, there is no subjective extorsion, and SO traction test was normal. So this was a case of right eye congenital superior oblique palsy. So what we did, since the R by L in the primary position was 10, so we did a IO modified ENN, and you can see that you can compare the pre-op and post-op pictures, and you can see the right eye hypertropia has been surgically managed well as the IO overaction in the left gaze has been tackled well. Now this is the second patient of congenital superior oblique palsy, left eye hypertropia increasing in the right gaze and increasing of left head tilt. There was no subjective extorsion. There was increased fusional reserve. That tells you that this is a case of congenital superior oblique palsy. Also there was mid-facial hypoplegia. Now in this patient, this was different from the other patient. In this patient there was vertical deviation of around 30 prism diopters. So it was a larger one. So we did an anteronasal transposition of the inferior oblique, and you could see that L by R decreased to 4, and this is a comparative pictures of pre-op and post-op. You can see the left eye hypertropia has significantly decreased even in the primary and in the right gaze and also on the head tilt.
So the advantage of inferior oblique is that you can grade the amount of the inferior oblique overaction and accordingly weaken the inferior oblique by the procedure. So our earlier case was modified Elliott-Nankin. The second one she has shown is an anterior nasal transpositioning, which is a much more severer weakening procedure for the inferior oblique.
This was a patient, he had a history of road traffic accident and he complained of diplopia in the down gaze. As you can see in the diplopia charting, you can see this patient was different. There was no significant IO overaction in the dextro elevation. But in the dextro depression, you can see that there is IR overaction.
Show the laser mark and show that. So this is important, you see, here the inferior oblique overaction is not showing in lit up in this. Whereas the underaction of the superior oblique is visible.
Here, and IR overaction is also there. So you have to do a FDD for IR, and in this patient it was moderately tight. And so we did a IR recession of around 4.5 mm. And this is a comparative picture of pre-op and post-op. You can see that in this dextro depression, you can see that there is significant improvement. And the patient diplopia has been treated. This is another patient of, he complained of torsion, basically torsion. So he was a patient of brainstem AV malformation and he underwent post-gamma knife surgery. Post that, patient developed this. Now, as you know that in bilateral, how do you rule out there is a bilateral superior oblique? Normally in a bilateral superior oblique palsy, there is no vertical deviation and there is, suppose right eye hypertrophy increasing the left gaze and left eye hypertrophy increasing the right gaze. And in the ipsilateral tilt, there is a increase in the hypertrophy. But in this case, you can see that R by L, there was R by L of 6 in the primary and it was increasing in the left gaze, but there was no L by R in the right gaze. So it was a masked superior oblique palsy. Left superior oblique palsy was masked. So you can see in the fundus also there was more torsion in the right side than left side. So this clinching point was when we did a double Maddox rod, we found there was 20 degree of extorsion. That tells you that you are dealing with a bilateral superior oblique palsy rather than a unilateral. So you have to do a bilateral Harada-Ito procedure. So V-ESO was also treated in this patient. So basically we follow over here, what we follow in the RP center is we do a superior oblique traction test. If it is markedly relaxed, then only you do a superior oblique tendon tucking. Otherwise you will land up in ipsilateral Browns. If there is no laxicity, you check for IO overaction. If there is IO overaction, you see for the primary gaze PBCT values. If there is less than 15, you can go for modified ENN and total AP depending on the PBCT value. If it is more than 15, always do a stretch procedure first. You can go for a more weakening procedure like ANT or total AP +2 +3 station. That means that you are just doing a total anterior position, but you are positioning it 1 or 2 mm ahead of the inferior rectus. And if still you have a residual, then you can go for ipsilateral SR recession or contralateral IR depending on the FDT values. But there is no inferior oblique overaction, then you can go for FDT for the ipsilateral SR and contralateral IR and you can recess it accordingly. So one should always keep in mind the plagiocephaly. Plagiocephaly basically is a pseudo paralysis of the superior oblique because of the underaction. Here there is a retroplacement of the superior oblique tendon, so there is desacralization and there is increase in the angle between the inferior oblique and the reflected part of the superior oblique tendon. And so there is underaction of the superior oblique. It mimics like a superior oblique palsy. And the algorithm which we follow is we should always look for the ocular rotation. If it is duction is past midline, that means eye is coming up to the midline, then you go for RNR procedure. But if it is short of midline, do an AFGT. If there is a weak AFGT and saccadic velocity analysis is less than 100, then you should go for a transposition procedure. And if the AFGT is moderate, you should go straight away for the RNR. And if the saccadic velocity is more than 100, then also you can go for RNR. So this is the first patient. He had esotropia in the primary position of around 50 prism diopters. You can see the eye is going beyond midline. And on the FDT, MR was tight, so you have to resist the MR. And AFGT, you could feel there was mild tug. So we did an RNR in this patient and we were able to tackle it quite nicely. You could see the abduction has also improved and in the primary position, the esotropia has corrected. This is the case 2. He was a post-traumatic pontine syndrome. He had multiple nerves involvement along with hemiparesis. This patient, you can see there is an esotropia of around 20 degrees in the primary position. He was not able to fix with the right eye. The eye was not going past beyond midline in the dextro gaze. And we did an FDT for MR, which was tight. So we have to do an MR recession, along with we have to do a transposition procedure. So we did an MR recession of 6 mm with partial vertical recti. Now we transpose the lateral part of both the recti, half of the recti, along with a resection. We did a resection on the temporal part of the superior and inferior rectus, along with, and we did an Foster when we transport at the lateral rectus, and we could see that there is quite significant improvement in the abduction. If you compare the pre-op and post-op photograph, you could see there is significant abduction improvement and also correction of the esotropia in the primary position. This is another patient of RTA. He had a traumatic hydrocephalus. He had a left face turn and 15 degrees in the primary position. His eye also was not going past midline. So we did a transposition procedure. Now in this patient, there was already MR recession was done outside. When we intraoperatively we found MR was excluded and was found 5 mm recess. So we couldn't recess it further. So we did a marginal myotomy in the medial rectus, and we did a partial VRT with resection of 3.5 mm, that is augmented Hammersheim, with cross action. We now, instead of Foster, we put a cross action in front of the lateral rectus, and there was improvement. Now, this is another patient of post-traumatic 6-nerve palsy. I was not going past midline. We decided transposition procedure in this patient. So now we did what? FDT was tight, AFGT was absent. So we did an MR recession with cross-action split VRT with a resection of 3.5 mm of temporal split portion of the vertical recti. Now you see, post-op, there was exotropia of minus 12 degrees. So it was quite significant. So we had to undo the MR recession, and finally patient achieved a slight exo of minus 4 degrees, which was quite desirable for our case. And lastly, I'll thank my mentor, Dr. Pradeep Sharma, for